All right, Alex, I just got done introducing you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you on. It's actually about a topic that, my wife and I care a lot about. I'll say truth and transparency, a lot more my wife than me. So Kristen is a bigger fitness person than I am. But, as you know, on the Physician Philosopher podcast, we talk all about life, money, and mindset. And at the White Coat Trainer, you're all about fitness and nutrition. And I imagine that has a lot to do with all three of those things, life, money, and mindset. So maybe we'll attack it in that order. But I'd love to get to know your background. Like, what's the backstory? What got you interested in fitness? What led you to want to start a business helping other doctors figure this out?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Fitness encompasses all three of those things perfectly. So the main reason why I got started with this is that growing up, I was always fascinated with exercise, fitness. Like, many kids growing up, I always thought that muscles were cool and being strong was kind of like having a superpower. So I was always just interested in just being strong and healthy and having a lot of muscles. But I didn't actually start my fitness journey until high school, where I played varsity baseball. So, like many Latino kids growing up in New York City, right by Yankee Stadium, we all had big aspirations of becoming a professional baseball player. And so that's what I thought I was going to become a professional baseball player. And aside from not being anywhere near as good as I was also just very, very small. I was about 140 pounds dripping wet. And I knew that some of the best players were just much, much bigger, much stronger than I was. So that's what I did. I started going to the gym, just trying to just pack on a little bit of muscle so that I could, ultimately become a professional baseball player. But then I kind of started realizing this wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to go pro. And I started realizing that I actually enjoyed being in the weight room and fitness a lot more than I actually did playing baseball.
Hmm.
So working out kind of just became my outlet. So I was studying to do pre med, and then I was just working out, and that's basically what my life just consisted of. Working out became my outlet for my studies, and I read everything I could about the topic. I was going on blogs, I was commenting on forums. I read books. I was following all of the fitness influencers of the time, and I became completely hooked. And that's when I realized, what, let me just focus on fitness, baseball. Even though I enjoy it, let's not kid ourselves. I'm not that good. So before I knew it, people started kind of coming to me for advice. They started seeing that I was really big into fitness. They started seeing that I was, getting results. I was building bigger muscles. That's all I would talk about. So I would talk to everyone that I could about fitness, and anyone who would listen. That's all I would yap about. And the number of people continued to just come up to me asking me for advice, especially when I started my medical training and ultimately my OBGYN residency. The number of people just asking for advice kept increasing. And then that's when I got the idea, along with seeing all of the other physician online entrepreneurs, that they were running businesses on the topics that they were passionate about. And to me, it just made perfect sense to just help other busy professionals like myself in encompassing fitness into their lives, because everyone tends to have a struggle of incorporating fitness into their lives. And that's kind of how I got the idea for starting the business.
Man, I love it. That's like a little miniature masterclass or workshop on like how to start online business. I talk to our clients all the time inside of ACE, that are interested in this topic about, kind of marrying their passion, something that has the potential for profit, and then what their propensity. So the three P's is what we call it inside the program. And like just listening to your story, like you're nailing all those things. Like, you got this passion for fitness, and then people started asking you, like, one of the questions I ask people all the time is, what do people come to you for advice on? Right.
Right.
And so, like, in my world, that's personal finance. Like, people come up to me all the time, like, "Hey, Jimmy, I maxed out my 403b." Right. And for you, they're
Right.
like, "Hey, I finally put up 225 on the bench press," So
Right.
like,
Exactly.
and so, like when you tap into like what people are naturally coming to you for advice on, like, not only is it fun because it marries your passion, but you're also naturally gifted at it, but you're also solving people's problem. And that's what makes you money in online business. And so not to jump ahead, but like, I think it's so cool how you like hammered all three of those things,
Right.
just in your introduction. I am curious though, what position in baseball?
Oh, so to me, I think the center fielder is definitely the best position on the field. So I played center field. I was very quick. I was kind of like a contact guy, quick on the bases, steal a lot of steal bases. It wasn't much of a power guy, as you can imagine. I was only about 140 pounds.
Yeah, I was a second baseman and a pitcher, so I feel you. I wasn't going yard very often either. But yeah, so when most people think of fitness and kind of adopting a healthy lifestyle, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, like the things that come up are like, oh, this is really time consuming for like meal prep or workout plans and creating something I'm gonna actually stick to. And yeah, you've kind of continually worked this out during your training. You mentioned, during pre-med, like you studied for pre-med and you worked out, and that's kind of what you did. And then as an OBGYN, and now you're finishing REI. So how do you find that balance that so many people kind of struggle with when they try to eat well and or exercise regularly?
Yeah, I think that's unfortunately just one of the biggest problems with the fitness industry. It's a common misconception to think that you have to spend countless hours exercising and you have to be very meticulous about tracking everything that you eat. And if you're not perfect, you might as well not do it. It's kind of like a all or nothing phenomenon. And I used to believe this too. Back when I was in undergrad and medical school, it wasn't uncommon for me to spend 2 hours at the gym working out. I would perfectly weigh out my foods and track my calorie intake and my nutrients. And it's funny because, in fact, I remember that I never wanted to share my food with my girlfriend, who's now my current wife, because I had perfectly calculated out all the macronutrients in the meal. So if I let her try some, it would ruin my calculations. And I was like, sorry, I can't let you try this. But thankfully, my life forced me to change. Anyone who has gone through a residency program knows that there just isn't enough time in the day to have any level of obsession with fitness or really anything. So I did what I do best. I tried my best to just simplify everything. I simplified my exercise routine. I simplified my diet. And I needed my routine to be as efficient as possible so that I could just get in, get out, and do what I needed to do. And I love a quote from Bruce Lee where he basically says, it's not about the daily increase. It's actually about the daily decrease. So you need to hack away at the unessential. So that's basically what I did. I analyzed my fitness routine. What here is the absolute essentials and what is kind of icing on the cake? What is kind of an extracurricular here? So in doing so, I was able to just know these are the exercises that are going to give me the best return on my investment. Everything else is just icing on the cake. So I trim my workouts to 25 to 30 minutes. I only focus on the most important exercises. As far as my diet, I also simplified my eating habits. So I created just small, simple, healthy recipes that I can meal prep and batch cook in about 2 hours. And I would have my entire lunch for the whole week on my off day. Sure, it's a commitment, but to me, it was worth trading just those 2 hours on my off day to have a nice healthy meal prepared for lunch for the rest of the week. And then the other important thing was it was important for me to remove obstacles that prevented me from exercising. One of the biggest issues that a lot of busy professionals have is that they're tired from their busy workday. Obviously, as a physician, you're working 12, 15 hours a day. You come home, the last thing you want to do is work out. So what I did was, I actually, a little hack that I created is that I just brought my gym clothes with me to work. So once my shift was over, as I was signing out, or as soon as my sign out was finished, I changed into my gym clothes and I went directly to the gym, because just wearing my gym clothes, leaving the hospital with my gym clothes on, I knew that I was already in the mindset of working out. I didn't have to go home, it was just a waste of time. Again, we don't have a lot of time. So just going home and then going back out, going to the gym, that's already 15, 20 minutes right there. Plus, you also need to overcome the activation energy of actually leaving your house to go work out again. So by going directly to the gym, it's you just don't have a choice. Plus, it also created a lot of accountability. Once my peers would see me changing into my gym clothes, they knew what I was going to go do. And I became that guy. Oh, he's the guy who just works out after every single shift. So it kind of created an identity. So I felt that I didn't want to have an incongruence with who I was telling myself that I was and who my peers are seeing me to be. And as a result, I made time for the gym no matter what. So basically just creating that mindset and eliminating the unessentials and just forcing myself to go after every shift no matter what. That's ultimately the best way to do it.
Man, Alex, I feel like these are like, we're just like cut snippets of these. These are like miniature, like just, master classes on different things. So like now, we talked about online entrepreneurship. Now this is like Alex Robles's masterclass on habit stacking and atomic habits. Right?
Yes.
Have you read that book?
I did actually. And it's funny how it perfectly articulated everything that I had been doing in my head. And I was like, great, this book is everything that I want to do in fitness. It wants to do in fitness, but it kind of just applies it to other aspects. But yeah, it's the perfect book for someone who struggles with this.
Yeah. Well, and the thing for me that made this really sink in was exactly that last piece that you got to, which I think for some people is the last piece that comes, but sometimes for me, it's like a switch that flips. And like you said, I'm just a person who works out. Like when it gets down to the identity level, like I literally read that book, and this may sound ridiculous, but I read Atomic Habits and I, bit my nails for 34 years. I read that book and I was just no longer a nail biter, just like a switch flipped and became my identity. And so like, and I'll say that for certain parts of fitness, that's become true. Like I'm someone who works out 3 to 5 days a week. I'm pretty much going to do that every week unless I'm on vacation or out of town or something.
Sure.
When I start slack, I slack when I'm out of town. But when you get down to that identity level, which is what, all those like habit hacks that you put in, like the gym clothes and the deactivation energy you didn't have to overcome, like that allowed you to become somebody that's just someone that does this sort of thing.
Right. Right.
And once you get to the identity level, it is so much easier just to continue to be that kind of person than it was to become it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I love hearing that. Well, hey, you're laying down some really concrete stuff, which I love, right? Like planning for the meal so that you have, your lunch planned out for the week. And you're talking about, I'm kind of curious. This is for my own, like maybe for the listeners too, but just for my own benefit. You talk about on the site, the Pareto principles, the 20% of fitness you need to know to get 80% of the results. And I'm a big fan of that because that's what the subtitle of my first book was, except for it was the 20% of personal finance doctors need to get 80% of the results. And so you mentioned like those 20 to 25 minutes workouts during residency and the exercises that really gave you the biggest bang for the buck, that everything else is just window dressing. It was just icing on top of the cake. I'm kind of curious if you had to boil it down, like maybe make it that specific, but for workouts, for like 25, 30-minute workouts, what are the exercises that give you that 20% that you need?
Yeah, definitely. So in fitness, basically, the best thing to do is to always go back to the fundamentals. The human body is designed to do pretty much 6 things. So it's meant to horizontally push, it's meant to horizontally pull, vertically push, vertically pull. So those are the major upper body exercises. And then for the lower body, it's meant to flex the knee, so knee flexion exercises, and it's meant to extend out the hips, hip extension exercises. So it just so happens that those 6 movement patterns are also the same 6 exercises that train almost every major muscle group in the body. So in reality, if you only did some variation of those 6 movements, you are basically training almost all the major muscle groups in the body, and you're doing it with the most efficient exercises because all of those movements are compound movements. So a compound exercise is any exercise that you're training multiple muscle groups at one time. So if you just ask a normal layperson, like, what would you do for a workout? A lot of them will kind of immediately go to bicep curls and maybe isolation, like shoulder lateral raises, do a lot of isolation. So a lot of that stuff is fine, but that's all icing on the cake. You need to focus on the big major muscle groups. So that's the number one thing is you don't have to do a lot of exercises. Incorporate some variation of these 6 exercises into your routine, and you already have 80% of the results right there. The second most important thing is what I call what the fitness community calls the progressive overload principle. So in the simplest terms, what this means is try to make each workout a little bit better than you did before. So basically, you need to do exercises that are challenging you in about to the 8 to 15 repetition range. And then whenever you're repeating that same workout, you just have to try to just beat your prior performance just by a little bit, a very small margin. This can be done with so many different ways. A little bit more repetitions, maybe just even one more repetition, one more set, adding just a tiny bit of weight. And we're talking just adding 2.5 pounds, 5 pounds. As you can see, what this does is it kind of gamifies fitness, and it makes it a lot of fun because what you're doing is you're just trying to just beat yourself. You're not comparing yourself to anyone else. You know that last time you benched 135 pounds for 8 reps, can you do 137.5 pounds for 8 reps next week? Can you do 140 the week after that? And then once you plateau there, okay, maybe I'll add another set and keep the reps the same. So there's just so many different ways of just making fitness a little bit fun. And it kind of builds a kind of creativity habit as well of how can I make this exercise just a little bit better? So tip number 1, do the 6 functional movement exercises. Tip number 2 is progressive overload. And just with those 2 things alone, you're already getting the vast majority of the results.
So I'm curious when it comes to that, like, do you encourage people to, because I know I've done this in the past and I haven't been doing it lately, but my nickname at work, I don't know if you know this or not, if in listening to the podcast, my nickname is Dory, like the forgetful fish. That's why it required you to send more than one email to get on this show. Yes. I'm forgetful. And so when it comes to that, I'm curious, do you encourage people to like keep a running log or an app on their phone or like something like, because you're talking about, hey, you're 135 this one week and then you go to 140 the next week. For me, like I would probably have a hard time. So how do you encourage people to do that?
Yes. So there are so many different ways. My personal favorite, I'm old school. I like to keep Excel spreadsheets. So what I do is I kind of create multiple columns and they're categorized by week. So I know exactly what I did last week because I can't remember what I did. I just look back, oh yeah, so I did this. Let me try to improve it. So there's different apps. There's so many different ways. You could just use the Notes app on your smartphone and just keep a running log of what you've done before. So keeping a journal is another habit that I think is going to be important for fitness, because there's nothing more satisfying than seeing your progress. Just remembering where you came back from and just saying, wow, like I've gained, 20 pounds of strength on my squat or on this exercise. It's another important thing. Cause I think, again, just having fun when you're doing fitness is going to be a key factor in helping you stay consistent and stay motivated as well.
I couldn't agree more, man. Coming from the non-fitness guru over here. So I am curious, you say you listen to this show, and so my clients have different names for this, like one-liners, zingers, kind of that go-to phrase. Like you just mentioned the quote by Bruce Lee about decreasing instead of increasing. And so I'm just kind of curious if are there thoughts or mindsets that you have out there that help people either get started with working out, or, a thought that might keep them consistent in working out? Like has there been, a specific idea, mantra, thought that you've seen be successful in your life or in the lives of the people that you work with at the White Coat Trainer?
Absolutely. And it actually harkens back to what you mentioned with bringing up the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. So my one line that I tell everyone, that in fitness, something is always better than nothing. There are just very few things in life where that is just very, very true. So the very best way to stay consistent with any fitness related endeavor is to just break it down to the smallest, most realistic chunks that you can, little habits that are easy for you to do in your specific life. The smaller the habit, the better, because again, something is always better than nothing. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that if you can't go all out and you can't train for 1 hour, that it's might as well not even do it, because that is the one thing that's going to keep you from attaining any of your fitness goals. So if you can't reliably commit to even just a 30-minute session, can you do a 20-minute session? Can you do 15? 10 minutes is better than nothing. Heck, 5 minutes is better than nothing. So as long as it's something that you can actually just stay consistent with, because consistency is by and large the most important thing in fitness, bar none. If you're not showing up, you're never going to get the results. And the nice thing about that is that every time that you show up, again, you're building that identity. You're saying, I'm someone who works out on a regular basis, because the truth of it is you get motivated after you take action. You don't get motivated and then take action. You take action and that motivates you. And the more you do something, the more motivated you're going to become to do it. And the more you do it, the more likely it'll become a habit. And the more habitual it becomes, the more you identify with that person. So I think that's the biggest mantra that I always try to tell everyone. Something is always better than nothing.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I literally just created this list yesterday of so I'm one of those people that has to be productive. Like I have to tell myself I've had a successful day in order for me to earn my rest.
Sure.
And I'm sure there'll be a podcast episode about that at some point too. And so I have these 5 rules for a successful day that I can tell myself that I had a successful day. And, the very first thing on this is do something to make Kristen happy, my wife, but and spend time with my kids. There's only 5 things that I need to do every day, create something. But number 4 on this list is move for at least 30 minutes, which is that could be a walk for 30 minutes. It could be, going doing push-up and pull-ups. It could be, going and playing pickleball for 2 hours like I did yesterday. And so for me, but again, I completely agree. Making it into a bite-sized morsel that makes sense. The only thing I find interesting just from a coach's perspective is, when we teach the thought model to people in coaching, we often talk to them about, how feelings produce actions and actions produce results. And I think that what's going on with what you're saying is really cool, because it's actually 2 models at the same time, right? One is that you found whatever you needed to get whatever emotion was required to get started. But once you get started, that produces motivation, which becomes the circumstance in your next model, that you're a motivated person. Right. And when you're motivated, you think this, and when you think this, you feel great, and then you work out. Definitely. Right. And so it's like the combination of 2 thought models that reciprocal kind of nature that you're talking about is exactly, it just fits very well into coaching.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I shared this with you beforehand, but exercise that part's not the hardest part for me. For me, I'm a terrible eater. And I'm gonna be honest. I drink more beer than I should. I love carbohydrates. I'm reading your site, and it's like your site has eat this, don't eat this. And I'm the king of whatever you're not supposed to eat, white carbohydrates, man, that's straight up my alley. And so, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. How do people go about adopting a lifestyle? I'm looking through the White Coat Trainer, and I think it has so much really helpful, advice on it. I think it's a really great resource for those that are listening. You should check it out if this, this stuff interests you. But for me, I'm reading it, and it's you're talking about adopting a lifestyle instead of dieting, which, you and I have already talked about that identity level and how important that is for it to become who you are. Like
Yes.
this, you're just someone who eats well. But for me, like that's been a harder pill to swallow than like I'm someone who exercises. Like I'm someone who moves for 30 minutes a day. I can get on that board. But
Sure.
when you're talking about adopting and maintaining a healthy lifestyle from a nutrition standpoint, man, that is hard for me. So
Yeah.
what would you say to the Jimmy Turners of the world?
Yes. So this is definitely one of my favorite topics. And the interesting thing is that a lot of the same concepts that I was just describing for the fitness realm also apply to the nutrition realm. So I'm a big advocate of a term that I believe I coined it. I call it compound dieting.
Okay.
So basically, it follows the principle of compound interest. So you make one very small change to your nutrition, something that is easy for you to do, kind of like if you are just taking money directly out of your paycheck to go directly into your 403b or your 401k, money that you don't see. It's a small amount that's not going to have any significant impact on your bottom line. So you do the same thing. Try to see if you can make one small change to your nutrition that's not going to have any significant impact. So, it's not going to prevent you from being able to go out with your kids or to, be able to socialize. But pick one thing that you can actually do every single day, no matter what. And it can be a very, very small thing. Like I'm just going to drink a glass of water as soon as I wake up, 8 ounces of water. And that's the one thing that I'm going to do every single day, no matter what. And again, the more you do that, the more it becomes a habit. And once that actually has become ingrained into your life, then what you do is then you make a second change. And now again, make a second small thing. And what you do is you progressively, just like as if you are investing money, you keep doing a small amount every single time. Eventually, over the long run, this adds up and it leads to dramatic changes into your nutrition and to the way you feel. So the one thing that I always recommend not patients, the one thing that I always recommend people do, sometimes the online and the physician thing,
I totally get it.
conglomerate. But the one thing that I recommend people do is stop focusing on don't focus so much on eliminating things from your diet. Focus more on adding things to your diet. So try to add things that are as nutrient dense as you possibly can into your current meal. So leave your diet exactly the way that it currently is and see how can I actually add something that's healthy and nutritious to what I'm currently eating. Is there any way that you can add more greens to your meal? Can you add a little bit more fruit to whatever snack you're already eating, some fresh fruit? Can you add some healthy fats, like maybe a little bit of almonds or some hemp seeds or chia seeds to whatever it is you're already eating, and focus on consuming that healthy thing first? And what winds up happening is that these foods are so nutrient dense. Basically, what that means is that it's chock full of the nutrients, the vitamins and minerals that your body actually needs to thrive. But at the same time, they also tend to be calorically light. They're lower in calories. So as a result, your body is getting the nutrients it needs. They also tend to be very satiating because they tend to be high in fiber. They tend to have a high water content. So your stomach is fuller. You're actually eating fewer calories, but you're actually improving your nutrition. You're getting more nutrients than you currently were before. And what winds up happening is that your stomach only has so much space. When you eat these foods, there just isn't enough space for the other stuff. You're going to see that naturally all of the other junk food or whatever the case may be will actually naturally start to fall out of your diet. So that's the biggest takeaway here. Just make small, tiny changes. Try to add things into your diet rather than subtracting, and things will automatically be eliminated by themselves. And over time, these little changes will compound on themselves and make a big difference to your nutrition.
My stomach's telling me right now that it has a limitless space. So maybe I need to start putting these changes into effect so I could realize that my stomach has a limited amount of room. But all right. So we've talked about mindset. We've talked about kind of finding the balance and how to do that. The kind of the life piece. But as you know, I'm a big money nerd, so I'm curious. And you can go as to much detail or as little detail as you want. But you've got the White Coat Trainer, and I'd love for you to tell people like the pros and cons of being an online entrepreneur, because there's a lot of people. I cannot tell you. I literally had a consult call today where someone's like, "Hey, I'm looking into coaching, and one of the reasons why is because I'm struggling at work and I want to find meaning." And the solution that they thought was, going to get them there was to create a non-clinical source of revenue. And I'm just kind of curious, what's been challenging for you? Like what's been really good? What has the White Coat Trainer allowed you to do financially during training and after? Like, you're about to be finishing up. So give us as much of the gory details of owning an online business as you're willing.
Sure. I have to tell Brittany, my wife, that starting this online business was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. The outlet to, provide so much creativity into this world is just unparalleled. And then the fact that we're actually able to get compensated for sharing our passions and just having a lot of fun while doing it is just mind blowing to me. Just getting emails from strangers across the country just thanking us for the content that we've been putting out there and how our the concepts that we teach has significantly impacted their lives and improved their fitness. It's just so touching, and it often brings tears to my eyes. I tend to be an emotional guy. I know in the
Me too.
one of the podcasts that you mentioned today, you said that you started crying in front of the speaker, and you weren't ashamed about it. I tend to be a very emotional guy too. So it often brings tears to my eye when I see people just emailing in on their own accord, just thanking us. So this has been just one of the most gratifying experiences I've ever had. But as far as the cons, it's definitely a lot of work. It's way more work than I ever anticipated this to be. We started the White Coat Trainer when I was a second year resident, OBGYN resident. And, everyone knows you're working 80 hours a week, you're doing 24-hour shifts, you're going from night shift to day shift. So my time was extremely limited. Plus I was keeping up with my fitness. So most of my time was just maintaining my fitness. And then I said, you know what, let me add on this additional thing to my plate. So it required a lot of time. It definitely required a lot of sacrifice. I had to basically cut out every other extracurricular that I was doing that didn't involve fitness. All of my free time went to working on the business and learning about SEO and learning about email marketing and learning about affiliates. And it's just so time consuming. And I realized if I want to grow this business, I actually need to treat it like a business and spend a full time 40-hour plus work week on this in addition to my 80-hour work week. So that was one of the toughest things. This isn't for the faint of heart. If you really want this to be something that is going to grow and actually be able to provide you financially, it requires a ton of time and dedication. And one of the biggest things that I learned early on is that this isn't going to pay off soon. You're going to be working hours and hours, and it's going to be a ghost town. No one's going to be visiting your website. It's all just going to be word of mouth. Your mom is going to be reading it, and maybe like a couple of friends. And when I remember when I first got money from the website, I think it was about like $2.30, and I was ecstatic. And I was like, "Whoa, it works! Like we're actually getting money from this thing." And but it's a grind. It took at least 3 years for it to be making any substantial amount of money. And now it's about 5 years in, and we're having so much fun that we actually started a second website, one geared towards postpartum women. So it's called the Postpartum Trainer, and it's about health and fitness for pregnant and postpartum women. Both my wife and I are OBGYNs, so we felt that it was a very easy transition to also help those clients as well. So the business has been amazing. It's been much more than we could have ever imagined. Just a couple of things that it has allowed us to do. So we're both in training. So she's a chief resident in OBGYN, 4th year. I'm currently in my last year, 7th year of training in reproductive endocrinology. And for the past 7 years, we've both been able to max out our Roth IRAs. It was $5,500 back in the day, and now it's $6,000. Believe it or not, I was actually able to pay off my student loans. So all that's left are her student loans. And I know there's awesome. There's a lot of finance bros out there. Oh, that's a horrible decision. You could have invested the money and you would have come out way ahead. I understand that completely, but to me, the emotional baggage associated with loans, I couldn't stand it. So I paid off my student loans. Now we just have hers to go. And also I just take a portion of the profit from the business, and it funds our vacations. So whenever we go away, all the money is coming from the business. And it's funny when we're out to eat at a restaurant or on vacation, and I check my email, we sold a program or whatever the case is. Oh, look, this just paid for the dinner. And it's just like funny just to kind of like look at it that way. So it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, but it's also been one of the hardest. It's definitely been a lot of work, but I wouldn't trade it.
Yeah, I think that's well said. There's a saying, I forget who said it. I think it's Lori from the Shark Tank. I want to say where it came from, but I might be falsely attributing it. But the idea that like entrepreneurs are people that will work 80 hours for themselves, so they don't have to work 40 hours for someone else. Absolutely. And like, that's exactly the experience that a lot of us have, particularly in the early goings. And yeah, I just always, it's just an interesting thing when you're a busy physician and you could just pick up extra shifts or moonlight or do other things. Like when people step into the online space as entrepreneur. And I often tell people, because of that duality that you just mentioned, like the amazing pros and like these other cons that come with it, including, working. In fact, I remember I'm a big car guy. And so like, that's like my one financial faux pas. And I watch YouTube videos all the time. And Doug DeMuro is one of the guys that has, YouTube channel on cars. And on one of the episodes, he finally shared about his actual business instead of about a car. And he talked about how basically for like the first 3 to 4 years that he had the business, he like didn't go outside. And like, that like all he did was like film cars and like make this YouTube channel, which now, is doing extremely well, gets millions of
Yeah.
page views. But like, I just related to that so much, like the early grind of like creating a business. And I don't think many people realize just how big of a grind that is.
Yes.
But it's true. And that's why, like, when people ask me about entrepreneurship, I kind of tell them it's a little bit like general surgery, right? When you're in medical school, right? Like everyone tells you, like, if you can do anything other than general surgery and be happy, you should do that. And
Right.
entrepreneurship is the same exact way.
Right.
And I mean that in the best way possible, which is that for some of us, it's just in our DNA. We're going to be an entrepreneur. And so you can fight it and fight it and fight it, but it's going to choose you eventually.
Yes.
But if you can be happy and not be an entrepreneur, by all means, please do that. It'll save you a lot of the grind.
Absolutely. It's funny because sometimes when I just have like a day off and my wife might be on a 24-hour shift and, she'll call me at the end of the day. It's like 8 p.m. She's like, oh, so like, what'd you do today? I literally just sat in front of the computer and worked on the business for 15 hours straight. and that's just what it takes sometimes. But, it's something that you have to be passionate about and, you don't regret it.
Yeah, that's why the passion piece is so important, man. Well, hey, one of the taglines of the show, as you are aware, is helping doctors create a life they love, one thought at a time. So if you had one thought that you could provide the audience, I'm curious, what would it be? What one piece of advice would you give to those that are, just behind you in the journey in terms of, attaining their fitness goals?
Sure. I think I would just kind of go back to that one tagline that I like to say is that, just never forget something is always better than nothing. Get started right now and you don't have to go all out. Do something that's realistic for you. If you can only do 5 minutes a day, so be it. It's always better to do something and start racking up those points and telling yourself that you are someone who exercises regularly. Exercise is one of those things in life that has such a disproportionate return on investment. Forget Bitcoin, forget cryptocurrency. This is the one thing that if you actually dedicate the time and effort, it's going to just pay off in all aspects, physically, mentally, emotionally. I can honestly say that my fitness center lifestyle is the one thing that has been able to help me cultivate whatever level of success that I have been able to obtain up to this point. I think it all goes back to that fitness center mindset, because the one thing that you can use, you have probably found success in some area of your life, whether it be, getting into medical school and becoming a physician, or starting an online job or an online business, or whatever you did, you have some level of success somewhere. Fitness, the same tools that you use to have success in those realms can also be used in fitness. It's all about just seeing what you can do, trying to be consistent with it, and never forgetting that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to go all out. Just do something small, stick with it. And I promise you, a couple of years down the line, you're never going to regret it. No one has ever finished a workout unless you got injured and said, I regretted doing that workout. No one, of course, unless you got hurt, which I've done plenty of times before. But I promise you, it's well worth it.
Well, Alex, I love that no one's ever finished a workout and regretted it, just like no one's ever paid off their student loans and regretted it. So don't worry about the people hating on your math, because I'm in the boat with you. I think there's a huge psychological benefit to that, and so maybe I need to adopt that same mindset to my fitness. I appreciate you helping all of us take a step in that direction. So, Alex, how can people get in touch with you? Where can they find you on the White Coat Trainer or Postpartum? I'd love to hear about both of those things, because they're both awesome websites and they're both worth checking out.
Yeah, definitely. So the best way to, get in contact with us is to just go on the websites. So it's whitecoattrainer.com and postpartumtrainer.com, and just sign up, join our newsletter. We're very personal on our newsletter. People email us all the time, and it's us replying to you. And we'll give advice, no medical advice, of course. And in that newsletter, we share a lot of weekly tips and strategies for, living a fitness center lifestyle with a busy work life. So if you're someone who struggles with fitness, you work 40, 60, 80 hours a week, and you want to just find time efficient strategies of improving your fitness, come on over, join our newsletter. That's the one medium that we're most active on. We do have an Instagram and a couple other social media handles, but, to be honest, we just don't have a lot of time to focus on those things. As you can imagine, time is very, very tight as is. But, come join us in the newsletter and let's chat.
I love it. Well, Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks for being here. I learned a lot. And so I know that means that everybody listening in the audience learned a lot too. So thanks for sharing your time with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Start before you're ready. Start by starting. Start now.